This is the overview for Futato chapter 10, and here we get into adjectives. And you already know what an adjective is, I'm sure. The forms for adjectives are exactly like the nouns that you've already memorized, the noun endings. So if you don't have those memorized, you should just really stop what you're doing and memorize those endings, because here they are again, and you don't want to get behind. Let's just put it that way. Well, again, when he talks about vowel changes, ignore it. You don't need it if you know your vocab. He has a discussion here of geminate roots. That is when you have a root form where the second and third consonant are the same. They'll be identical. So you can read through this. It'll just explain why we have some of these. Again, when he starts talking about vowel reductions and when the shava appears and syllables and all that kind of stuff, don't worry about it. Just know your vocab. Other nouns from geminates, adjectives from geminate roots. Again, sometimes the gemination will be marked with the dagesh, the strong dagesh, because that's the doubling dagesh. So just be aware of that. What you really want to focus on here in chapter 10 are the colorized sections here. I've colorized them so that you remember which sections here are just absolutely critical to understand. And you're not really going to have memorization here, although I've made some separate grammar notes videos that might help you just memorize the few basic thoughts that are in these sections. But section 10.8, 10.9, and 10.10 are just really, really important, because you need to know how to translate an adjective in relationship to the noun that it belongs with in some way. So there are three uses: attributive, predicative, and substantive. These sections will explain them. And rather than me repeat what I have on the video that I made for this, I'm not going to do that. A lot has to do with definiteness. Definiteness is very important. The presence or absence of a definite article on either the noun or the adjective, or both. Okay, so that'll give you a little clue. Please watch the video I created for this. I think it will be very digestible. But read through the examples and the way he describes it here. The predicative use, you'll notice here we have tov hasus. None of these, none of them. The adjective does not have a definite article in any of the examples. That's a key. When the adjective lacks a definite article, it's going to be a predicative use, 98% of the time. Substantive adjective, usually you would take, it'd be the adjective with the article all by itself with no noun to go with, so it has to sort of function as its own noun. You can have it without the article, but the way you'd tell is, hey, there's no noun that this adjective goes with. It's all alone. It's stranded. Well, some nouns can function, some adjectives can function as nouns. So when you see an adjective that's stranded, an adjective that's all alone, there's no noun to go with it, chances are you have to translate it as a substantive. But again, watch the video that I created for this. Adjectives as comparatives, this is a specific use of the preposition min. So when you have an adjective and then you have min, and you sort of have two nouns compared, two nouns on either side of the min, just as he has here, adjective plus noun plus min plus noun, again, or pronouns. The min is being used comparatively. So here we have chacham, the word for wise, there's our adjective, hamelech, the king. So you notice chacham doesn't have an article, so you would be tempted to translate this, the king is wise. But then you'd have the king is wise from the priest, ha-kohen. The king is wise from the priest. So when you hit that, it should trigger in your mind, the key here is min. It's not from the priest. Min is being used to compare the king and the priest. It's in the middle of these two nouns. And this adjective out here is the basis of comparison. So what we really have here is the king is wiser than the priest. That's how you would put it in English. But again, you can watch the video that I made for adjectives, and again, read through this, sections 10, what was it, 10:7 through 10:11 really carefully, because very important. You'll see this frequently, and it would be easy to get tripped up if you don't have a handle on how to handle adjectives. This section 10:12 you can read. It's just the vav can be used this way in relationship to nouns and adjectives. Depends on really the positioning and whether you have an attributive or a predicative use of the noun and the adjective, so on and so forth. But this is pretty self-explanatory. So now we hit our vocab again and practice. So this note here, make sure you read it. Always read these little notes down here. It's usually something you're going to see in the exercises. You've probably already figured that out. But make sure you read that. And that's the end of the overview for Futato Chapter 10.